sex is not for the purpose of sex. Sex is for the purpose of creating intimacy. Intimacy is really the goal. That's what it's all about. Sex devoid of intimacy is nothing. It's porn is that. So that's not what we're trying to create. We're trying to create marriages and blessings that will invite God down into our blessing.
Hey, you're listening to the Blessed Couple Podcast, where we talk about how to do this marriage thing and experience God in the process. I hope you enjoy and subscribe. Let's get started.
Hi, David Mitsue here. We're here to talk to you about having sex after a dry spell. And what we mean by after a dry spell can mean different things. It could be after a death in the family. It could be surgery for an illness. It could be some other type of trauma, perhaps something going on with your family, with the children. And sometimes it can feel you'll go through things in your life that will be pretty devastating, and you will have a dry spell from your sexual relationships. And there'll definitely be emotional needs in the family. Sometimes one or both of you may just erupt in tears of sadness. Certainly, initiating sex in those times is inappropriate and insensitive. But eventually, time heals all wounds, whether it's emotional or physical, and it's time to get back on with your life. So we found that having sex after those periods of dry spell, it might begin with just holding each other. And we do that even in the midst of the trauma. We will hold each other, embrace each other, comfort each other. So it's not so much for enjoyment as much as for comforting each other. And if that's the intention, when that's the intention of sex, then it can be a very good experience. It can help in the healing, and it can help both people get their lives back on track. Sometimes there might be a period with some couples that they haven't had sex in several months or even several years. And in that case, too, you'll want to first work on building emotional intimacy, getting close to each other, touching each other, and eventually to have sex with each other. And that may not be mind-rocking sex that you have experienced, but it'll be the kind of sex that will comfort you both, and it'll be a time when you can show each other how much you care about the other person. And that's really the intention, is to demonstrate how much you care about that person. Definitely, if you haven't had sex in a long time, having the mindset of taking from the other person is not a good start. But when you've got the other person in mind, totally their heart and their body in mind, you approach it with sensitivity, then it can be very healing, and it can get you back on track to having normal, enriching marriage relationships. Because the purpose of marriage is really for the man to want his wife to become a better woman, and the woman to want her husband to become a better man. Anything you'd like to add?
I think the sex is really last thing. And so if we keep conversation very sensitively, what's happened, talk about it. Sometimes brothers or husband would come to me and ask me, my wife doesn't want to have sex. What shall I do? And so I ask, do you hold her? Do you have a conversation with her? Walk hand in hand? And they are not there yet. So when they want to sex, I think that's very difficult for women when husband is not too sensitive and kind to her, at least kissing, holding. And if you don't have that, it's very difficult. So I would say hold the hand and start conversation. And then, don't expect the sex would come right away, but you have to warm up because the woman needed to be filled. The heart needed to be filled to open, to say, okay, I'm ready for sex. Especially the trauma or sickness are the reason they don't have the relationship. That's probably the most important thing.
Hey, if you're getting something good from this episode, it would mean the world to us if you could share it with someone you love or leave a 5-star review, because the only way this podcast spreads around is through word of mouth. So a share or a review would go a long way, and it only takes like 10 seconds to do. Thanks. Back to the show.
For husbands and wives who haven't had sex in a long time, often it's because if the wife has been resistant, it's because she hasn't enjoyed sex. And it may be because the husband has not been investing enough time and love into that relationship. Sex is not for the purpose of sex. Sex is for the purpose of creating intimacy. Intimacy is really the goal. That's what it's all about. Sex devoid of intimacy is nothing. Porn is that. So that's not what we're trying to create. We're trying to create marriages and blessings that will invite God down into our blessing.
Mm-hmm. Also, if wife felt they are used, they never had, orgasm, they never enjoyed and felt used, especially when you are pregnant and, you don't have sex in mind at all. And then husband needs greater than yours and try to have sex. And then you feel used. And if that emotion is not really taken care of, by God, comforting, and your husband is grateful for your cooperation, something like that. And, it will be very difficult.
So husbands, if you want to have sex with your wife and you haven't had sex for a long time, be nice to her.
Yes, very nice to her.
But your niceness should not be for the purpose of sex. Your niceness should be that you do it as a way of life. Mm-hmm. You're nice to her as a way of life because you respect her. Mm-hmm. And she's your queen. That's all we have for you today.
Hey, if you want to improve your relationship or take your sex life to the next level, well, you're in luck because more than 70% of couples that take our Love and Integrity course said that the quality of their sexual relationship improved after joining the course. Sounds good? You can join the program today with your spouse or just take the course by yourself at loveandintegrity.com. See you in the next episode.